ಮೇಲೆ ನೀಲಿ ಆಗಸ ಕೆಳಗೆ ತಾಯಿ ಭೂಮಿ ದೇವರಿತ್ತ ಗಾಳಿ ನೀರು ದೇವರಿತ್ತ ಗಾಳಿ ನೀರು ಹಂಗೆಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀಲಿ ಆಗಸ ಋತುಮಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಜೊತೆಗೂಡಿದ ಶೀಲವಂತೆ ಧರಣಿ ಋತುಮಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಜೊತೆಗೂಡಿದ ಶೀಲವಂತೆ ಧರಣಿ ಬೆಳೆಯ ನೀಡಿ ಮಳೆಯ ಹಾಡಿ ಕಾಪಾಡುವ ತರುಣಿ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀಲಿ ಆಗಸ ಲಜ್ಜೆಯಿರದ ಮಾನವ ನಿನದೆ ಕಾರುಬಾರು ಲಜ್ಜೆಯಿರದ ಮಾನವ ನಿನದೆ ಕಾರುಬಾರು ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಡೆ ಜಾತಿ ಚಿತ್ರ ನೂರು ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಡೆ ಜಾತಿ ಚಿತ್ರ ನೂರು ಮೇಲೆ ನೀಲಿ ಆಗಸ ಕೆಳಗೆ ತಾಯಿ ಭೂಮಿ ದೇವರಿತ್ತ ಗಾಳಿ ನೀರು ದೇವರಿತ್ತ ಗಾಳಿ ನೀರು ಹಂಗೆಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀಲಿ ಆಗಸ. Thank you.
Namaskar and thank you very much, sir. I welcome you all to Srishti Sambhrama, as we call it, the celebration of the Earth Mother. And that is how she is addressed by many, many indigenous cultures. Of course, in the Indian ethos, we call her Bhumi Devi, Bhudevi, Vasudha, and ever so many more names than just that. And Srishti Sambhrama has been a festival it's a flagship festival that was celebrated by Heritage with the support of VNMIT for the past 10 years. And we have done it in various manners, and we've always addressed the youth. And this year, since we are under the circumstances with this pandemic and we can't do a real program, it turned virtual, and the Center for Soft Power has joined us. And this is being brought to you by the Center for Soft Power. And we have several collaborators. We have, of course, the Heritage Trust, and we have VNMIT along with us. And then we have the Wildlife Trust of India. We had the Deputy High Commission of the British Consular also with us. And then we have the World Wildlife Artists Federation, and also the International Center for Cultural Studies. All of them have been very supportive in bringing all this together for us. And of course, we also have our own Indica Films, who's a representative of that is with us, Shri Danji Thotapalli, otherwise called Danji. And, we have had 3 days, and this is our last day. We inaugurated a virtual exhibition of wildlife artists. We also have a virtual exhibition of photographers up. And today we are going to inaugurate, after this, an exhibition of the wild in the Indian ethos. In the Indian ethos, the wild has not been seen as apart from creation. And for us in the Indian ethos, the entire creation is nothing but divinity. So we have gods that are animals or part animals. Our gods, right, Vahanas, were also worshipped like, as gods, demigods, who are all animals. And of course, we worship the trees, the rivers, the mountains, and, that is India for us. We worship everything, except that somewhere down the line, we seem to have lost that connect. And more often than not, what we do today is, I should say, the ritual estate but the significance is lost. We will say Ganga Maya, but we will, somewhere the sewage will be going into Ganga Maya, and all the trash that one can find will be going into the river. And I don't know what happened to us. Something happened to us. Somewhere we lost the pride of the culture that we have, and we forgot to become a thinking society. I mean, we were a thinking society. I'm not generalizing, but more often than not, we are not a thinking society. We never think about the significance of all this. When we were told that, what a stupid society that worships stones and animals and etc., we thought we're stupid. But the reason why, I mean, this is my opinion, I think that our ancients wanted us to worship all this was that if something is worship worthy, we are not going to desecrate it. So they thought that for our own good, we should make all this worship worthy, because, the animal world will survive beautifully without man. Nature will go on wonderfully. I mean, we've seen it in these 3 weeks when, there was complete lockdown. The animals had a beautiful time and nature just rejuvenated herself. But it's man who can't live without nature. I mean, we can't live without the support of all these things. And just yesterday, I think in one of the discussions, somebody was saying that, down south, people want to know what happens if a rhino dies in Tadoba. What is not Tadoba, in the Kaziranga? What stupidity when I think Swami Vivekananda said that when a blade of grass moves on the earth, there's a star that's affected. So there is a very fine balance that Mother Nature has provided, which, if it is unsettled, we'll end up with, pandemics and etc., and you name it, every kind of situation we'll land up with. So over the past 3 days, we've been trying to bring artists also, because even our art is so connected to our nature. We had a dance on the first day, then we had musicians who sang Namami Gange. We had a verse from even our heritage literature is filled with nature and, deifying nature. Kalidasa used the clouds as a method. And
without delaying much, I'll just invite Srimati Rama Vaidyanathan to address us a little bit about her. She is one of the topmost stars of Bharatanatyam and is a well-known exponent of the dance form all the world. She has been fortunate to have trained intensively under the legendary dancer Yamini Krishnamurthy. Ramaji has also been under the guidance of the eminent Guru Saroja Vaidyanathan. Welcome, Ramaji, and I hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Vijay Lakshmiji, for making me a part of this webinar. And I'm a dancer, so what I present today is going to be completely connected to what a dancer thinks of the rhythm of nature. So I've titled this talk, Rhythm of Nature. So there is no denying that there is a rhythm in every aspect and in every dimension of nature. Second man is born, his heartbeat becomes his life-sustaining rhythm. And the second this life-sustaining rhythm stops, man ceases to exist. The planets move in an incredibly coordinated rhythm. The earth rotates and revolves in an incessant rhythm. Seasons appear and disappear with persistent rhythms. Flora and fauna move in their individual characteristic rhythms. In fact, according to Hindu philosophy, the whole universe is constantly engaged in a dance to the myriad rhythms of nature. Lord Shiva's cosmic dance is representative of the unified cosmic dance of the universe. Therefore, everything that moves naturally in this universe is considered sacred and is a microscopic manifestation of that macroscopic dance of nature. Whether it is the slithering snake or the swaying trees, the gushing waters, or the walk of the heavy-footed elephant, the flight of the birds, or even the unhurried scrawl of the worm, they are all part of that one dance. That is a manifestation of Shiva's Ananda Tandava, or dance of bliss. So there was this Shaivite poet in the 3rd century called Tirumular, and he wrote in this work, Tirumandiram. So Tirumular said that everything, every animal, every animate object moving in its separate rhythm collectively forms the cosmic dance of the universe. And he said this fantastic term that I really love. He called it Ananda Kute in Tamil. Ananda means bliss, and Kute means chaos. He called it blissful chaos. Everything that moves is a dance, he said. So he said, Tattuvamada Sadashivam Tanada. The planets are moving. Tattuvamada Sadashivam Tanada. Chittavumada Shiva Shakti Tanada. Vaita Characharam Ada Marayada. Attanumadinan Ananda Kute. Even that small Tattuvamada Sadashivam Tanada. Chittavumada Shiva has been a response, not just to rhythm, but it is also an imitation of life and nature. Every movement that we execute is a sum total of life's experiences of what we see, what we hear, what we feel, and what we experience. For example, how do we replicate the movement of the peacock or the deer or the eagle? It's because we have seen them before and we have observed them and we have tried to imitate them. As children, we see animals all around us in the zoo, on television. And without realizing it, we take videos and capture them, their movements deep down within us. And as dancers, it is these episodes that help us depict them. I enjoy observing the movement dynamics of animals, and I derive great joy in replicating their moves. I had embarked on an extremely interesting project called Dance of the Birds with my friend Dr. Arshia Sethi, who, along with being a dance scholar, is also an avid bird lover. So the idea was to make bird lovers dance lovers and to convert dance lovers to bird lovers. Arshia, with her vast experience in bird watching and engaging in their conservation, came up with a fantastic script with interesting visuals that not just celebrated the birds, but also addressed several issues concerning them, like migration, depleting habitats, and extinction. I created a composite program around this in the Bharatanatyam medium. And I must say that in the whole program, the whole process, thanks to Arshia's generous sharing of well-researched information, I was able to engage with birds more intensely than I've ever had. I started looking at them keenly. More than before, I started looking at their expressions, their movements, their techniques of flying. And I found different birds had different expressions. So the sparrow will look like this. The owl will look like this. The eagle will look like this. The peacock will look like this. The swan will look like this. So I started looking at the expressions of these birds and found them absolutely fascinating. Dance teaches us several life lessons. And during this time when I was creating Dance of the Birds, my favorite imagery of this whole program was how birds would go and painstakingly make their nest, bringing things from outside, and slowly the nest will be formed, and one little cute little bird will jump out of the nest slowly, 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 and gradually fly away from the nest. So after keenly observing these processes, I tried again. I said I tried to bring them into the language of dance. And like I said, I always feel there's something which is much lesser, much more inferior than the actual grace that the animals have. One of the most vital lessons that we learn as dancers is to become sensitive towards animals and be aware of their conservation and preservation. Right from the beginning, we depict gods and goddesses and enumerate their stories, who, in my opinion, come across as huge environmentalists. Shiva wears the sky upon himself, and that's why he's called the Digambara. And his constant companions are the deers, the snakes, and the deers. Krishna, his profession was a cowherd, to herd cows. And numerous sculptures and paintings depict him with cows all around him. And the visual imagery that we create through dance depicting Krishna with the cows around him is really very alluring. Most gods and goddesses have a vahan, as Vijay Lakshmi ji said, that is always an animal. Durga has the tiger, Lakshmi has the owl, Saraswati has the swan, Shiva has the bull, Vishnu has the eagle called Garuda, Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, has the little mouse, Kartikeya, his brother, has the peacock, Yama, the lord of death, has the buffalo, and Indra has the elephant. There are several symbolisms for the choices of these animals, but the fact is that this huge privilege was bestowed upon these animals in Indian mythology. How can we not mention, of course, the elephant-headed god Ganesha, Narasimha, the half-man, half-lion god, and Hanuman, the monkey god, who was Lord Rama's ardent devotee. It's interesting that in Indian literature, whether ancient or contemporary, references to animals are extensively made in the context of metaphors, because everything about them is so beautiful that when you want to speak about anything which is beautiful, anything which is graceful, anything which is strong, we always refer to the metaphor of the allegory of the animal. The beauty or the inherent nature, the characteristic movements of animals are used to enhance the poetry in allegories. So I end my talk with exposition of some of these metaphors. For example, that woman
Rama?
Yes? Yes?
Rama? Sorry
Yeah?
to interrupt. You have half a minute left.
Yeah, I'm done. Can you all hear me? I don't know
Yes,
what's
but
wrong.
I really want to see what you want to say in the end. So please carry on and finish it.
Okay, yeah, I have half a minute left. Right, so the allegories. So I say, oh my God, that woman walks with such grace. She walks like the swan. And that woman has such beautiful eyes, like the eyes of the fish. Krishna
Rama,
has,
sorry to intervene, but you have half a minute to finish, Rama.
yes. Krishna has the demure eyes like the deer. Radha walks into a bower full of bees, which actually speak about her confused mind because the bees move like that. Rama has the majestic gait of the elephant. And finally, the heroine sends a message of love to the bird and asks the bird to take it for her. With that, I end my talk. Rhythm of nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramaji. That was so enjoyable, and I think all of us were engrossed in it. We could feel the movements with you, and I think dance and also film are closely related in that sense, where each of us observe the movement, whereas you'd be seeking to imbibe it in your performance, and we have filmmakers who are just trying to capture them in their lenses. And I'll hand over the session to Danji very soon, but before that I'd like to introduce him. Shri Danji Thotapalli, or Dhananjay, is the Chief Curator of Indica Pictures and the Festival Director of its upcoming Indic Film Festival, a global online film festival scheduled for November 12th to 15th. He's a senior global technology sourcing professional with a passion for cinema, and his claim to fame is of watching at least one film each day. Having spent the past 10 years at major Hollywood studios, previously at NBC Universal and currently at Sony Pictures, Danji understands the power of film and the extent of its reach. In addition to working in Hollywood, Danji has been associated with Film Festival of Los Angeles for about 12 years and comes with a deep insight into all facets of running a film festival. Danji, over to you. Please take.
Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you are all having a great time and you had a great day. It's early morning here in Los Angeles, and I hope my voice is still awake. I seem to be okay, but excuse me if my voice doesn't help or doesn't cooperate with me. I'm actually pretty thrilled that I'm here today. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a slide into our panel discussion today, which is about filmmaking of wildlife. So the one thing that I mean comes to my mind is the poet Kalidasa, right? The poet Kalidasa, he's supposed to have lived in the 4th century. He wrote Megha Dhutam, which is an epic about a cloud messenger that travels from Ramagiri to Alakapuri in Himalayas, and he describes the entire path so beautifully in his epic way back. I mean, we're talking about 1600 years ago, roughly, and he talks about the flora and fauna of the region as he's traveling towards the Himalayas. He talks about sandalwood plantations, different types of animals, and it's beautifully described. So I mean, in that sense, I feel all of you panelists here are like Kalidasa, because you, like Kalidasa, are bringing to us these images that we can now see on film about wildlife, about nature. So in that sense, very, very, it's awesome, basically. Of course, Kalidasa's Ritu Samhara is another thing, which is a great epic poem about changing seasons. And I'm sure Ramaji would know that, because there are a lot of dance performers have performed to Ritu Samhara. They have put together beautiful dances. So Ramaji, your performance was awesome. Thank you very much. So I'll do a quick introduction of everybody, and then we'll jump into the panel discussion. So I'd like to go with Akansha first. Akansha Sood Singh is an award-winning filmmaker, a wildlife filmmaker with a 20-year track record. Akansha is known for her passion and brilliant storytelling. Through her films, which are marked by strong stories, breathtaking visuals, and the use of experts, Akansha brings narratives to the screen that create empathy, towards the natural world and the need for conservation. Akansha's work has been recognized at the highest level. She, along with Praveen Singh, her husband and co-founder of Gayer People, have won many acclaimed awards, including the Student Emmy and the National Film Awards. They have also been nominated at the Wild Screen and Jackson Hole festivals. The couple's work has been televised across the world on various networks like Prime, Netflix, Animal Planet, Channel 4, BBC, Discovery, National Geographic, NHK Japan, PBS, and of course, in India, several channels in India. Little known fact about Akansha is that she is a DIY specialist. She does a lot of projects on her own. So do-it-yourself expert. So that's Akansha for you. Then I'll go to Gunjan after that. Gunjin Menon is an independent wildlife filmmaker and writer from India. Maybe Koti, if you can spotlight, the individual so that people can see from this large screen. I don't know whether you can do that, but if you can, that'd be great. So she specializes in conservation and human interest stories and has won multiple accolades with 30 plus international awards and nominations. Spotlight on Gunjan, Kotiji. Her work has been seen on Animal Planet, Discovery, BBC Earth, along with other local Indian platforms. This year, she was a virtual cinematography mentor for the NEWF Wild Women Media Lab, an initiative to guide 10 women in conservation science and media from 7 countries in Africa through the process of producing a microfilm. She strives to shift the limelight to lesser known species and habitats and practices a cross-genre approach to produce action-driven content for the masses. So she makes masala wildlife films. Gunjan, right? That's great. So she is the founder of Beyond Premieres, an organization that supports filmmakers to create tangible impact through their art. Gunjan was recently awarded the Jackson Wild Media Award as a Rising Star 2020. Little known fact about Gunjan. She loves to rescue bats and actively working on rehabilitating pipis, which is pipistrelles, and fruit bats. That's Gunjan for you. Next, I'll go to Gautam Pandey. Gautam Pandey studied film in Canada and won several national and international awards for his films. Born into a family of nature enthusiasts, Gautam's passion for filmmaking started at an early age. He spent 2 years filming in the Great Himalayan National Park to document the rare and elusive Western tragopan, which is actually a bird, a kind of a bird, a very colorful bird. Gautam has also produced and directed several episodes of the TV series Earth Matters, a prestigious environmental series. Over the last 5 years, Gautam has traveled, trekked, and dived into extreme locations and made films on important issues such as mangroves in India, high altitude wetlands, and impacts of climate change on high altitude shepherds, which is very interesting. He has recently completed 2 films as a co-director and presenter for Animal Planet, Gyamo, Queen of the Mountains, and Looking for Sultan. Currently, he is working on a film on the secret lives of Himalayan brown bears. Little known fact about Gautam is that he recently trained the Border Security Force of India on the basics of filmmaking and cinematography. So that's Gautam. Next, the Bedi Brothers, Ajay and Vijay, are independent filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, photographers, and wildlife conservationists. They do a lot of that on the conservation front, who have been filming researching and exploring in India for many years. Their mission is the conservation and understanding of key wildlife species that determine the course of all conservation in India. They have used their passion for making wildlife films as a powerful tool for inspiring people, spreading awareness, and working with policymakers, researchers, and local community for a common goal for conservation. Their work has been recognized across the globe. They have been honored with the prestigious Golden Lotus and Silver Lotus, besides the Indian National Film Awards. Little known facts about the Bedi brothers. They are the only Asians to have won nomination for the Emmy Award, which is the highest American award that recognizes television shows. Also, they are the youngest Asians to have won the coveted Panda Award, popularly known as Green Oscars, at the Wildscreen in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming over. I hope I did justice in that introduction. Looking forward to all of you talking to you. Kotiji, you can go back to the gallery mode. And if you can spotlight whoever is speaking. That, of course, it's a tricky thing, but if you're comfortable, please go ahead and do that. If not, the gallery mode is fine. So basically what we're going to do is, we have a theme for today. So the theme is kinship among wildlife filmmakers. That's the theme. So kinship, all of you are into wildlife filmmaking. So there must be something that's common among all of you in terms of what you do, how you do things. But at the same time, I'm sure there are plenty of things that are unique to each of you that you bring to the table, and which is your signature, so to speak, in terms of how you approach the whole process of filmmaking. So that's the theme. So keeping that in mind, of course, you can talk about anything. We're pretty much going to be covering a lot of ground. And what I was thinking is, I would go one by one. How about that? We could first talk to Akansha ji, and then spend a few minutes with her, then jump to Gunjan, and then Gautam, and then Ajay and Vijay Bedi ji. So how about that? I think that seems to like a plan. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go to Akansha, and then Akansha, do you want to say a few words? Warm up.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a very good platform to be on, and I hope we reach out to as many youngsters and inspire them to kind of join this industry. We need a lot of voices to talk about the natural world, and I hope we're able to do that. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. So the question I had for you, Akansha ji, is, can you talk about how one goes about making wildlife films? Is it any different from a regular film? I'm into films. I've been into films for a long time. I watch a lot of films. I've interacted with filmmakers, but I'm not sure I actually know how wildlife films are made. So
there are, I think, a lot of ways of making a wildlife film. When you say other films, I'm assuming you're talking about fiction, and I really don't know how that industry works. I've dabbled with it very little, so not very sure of how it works. But wildlife film essentially starts maybe like any other film with an idea, which you need to, I think, research through and through. What's the story? And how are you going to make that story? Making a wildlife film is a very time-consuming and a very intensive process. It can take anything from, depending on the film you're making, it can take anything from, say, 6 months to sometimes a couple of years, So obviously funding has a big role to play in wildlife films. They're huge, big budget films that essentially get made. But the process, I would say, starts with obviously what is the story, what animal story or landscape story that you wanted to say. You need to find something very interesting, or a treatment you need to develop that makes people want to watch that film. And I think given that it's in a factual genre, wildlife films have to be very, very well researched. We do tend to take creative liberties, but the grounding is in a lot of, facts, and that's very critical. How you go about making a film, I always believe that, filmmaking is teamwork. And I mean, I can obviously make a film on my own, go shoot it, edit it, and put it together, but I don't believe in that. I like to work with a lot of people, and because I think everybody who works together brings a lot of creativity into the process, and it's always good to have diversity in your films that work towards the common goal of making that particular film. They believe in it. They can have their different opinions, but eventually the best of everyone's work has to come out in that.
I was actually wondering, like in regular films, you would have genres, right? You would have a drama, you would have horror, you would have science fiction, rom-coms, and so you have a set. You know what kind of an emotion you want to bring out of the film for the audience. So in wildlife films, do you think about what emotions you're planning to actually bring out in that particular film?
I think yes, we do. Like even in wildlife films, and Gautam, Gunjan, and the Bedi brothers here, I think all of us have gone through that process that even within wildlife, there are a lot of genres. There's blue chip, which is purely just animal films, beautiful, all of that. There's a lot of science and drama films. There's a lot of conservation kind of stories, which people tend to perceive as boring, but they can be made very interesting, and they are interesting. So there are different genres in wildlife as well. And emotion does play a role in all of these films, because you're talking about, say, a species, a landscape, or even a plant that cannot talk for itself. And how would you bring out emotions? Obviously, it's the voiceover, the choice of words, that music, and very importantly, the cinematography. I think that plays a very big role in, in bringing these emotions out. And I honestly feel that in wildlife films, your cinematographer is really the key person of the story.
Wonderful. So, did you go to film school? I mean, or something like that, or you self-learned how to make films?
No, I'm not from any film school. My husband is. So a lot of it has come from him. It has come from the people that I worked with. I've picked up everything on the job, I would say. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's the best way to learn something, right? I had a question, which I will ask, I think, all of you to share. And this has to do with how new technologies have changed the whole landscape of filmmaking. For example, drones, right? So drones are so part and parcel of how wildlife films are made today. I mean, I watched a few wildlife films over the past week, and I have seen enormous use of drones and all kinds of drones. And then, of course, these highly sophisticated cameras, I don't know what they're called, but really go close to the, for example, an insect, and you can go right there, and then, things like that. Of course, there's GPS, I think, plays a significant role in where you are and how do you, all that. So can you talk about how the new technologies have impacted and how you were able to use these technologies in your own films?
So new technology, yes, there's drone technology. There are these small little cameras, which are very high resolution and fit into all kinds of nooks and corners. And then there are cameras that allow you to film at night when there is no artificial light. So starlight cameras, and of course, thermal cameras that just pick up, the heat and help you record. They give you a very new perspective. They enhance your, your storytelling, and I think they help you really push, a story to the limit. Now, if you see traditionally, films are always shot from sunrise to sunset. I mean, in India, you also get permissions to film only from sunrise to sunset. You can't film at night, but if you manage to film at night, there are a lot of considerations. You can't use artificial lights and all of that. So you use infrared. You use infrared lights and you use starlight cameras and thermal cameras. And we have been able to use this technology very successfully in a 2-part series that we did for international release, India's Wandering Lions and Manas, Return of the Giants. We're filming big cats in both the places, in Gir, lions in Gir, and in Manas, elephants and tigers and rhinos. And a large part of the natural world, a large part of their, I would say, schedule, a daily schedule also plays out at night. They don't just go and hide somewhere and go off to sleep. And I'm very glad that using new technology, we were able to bring out what happens in our forests at night. If you want, you can play a trailer of the film that I've uploaded, India's Wandering Lions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Koti, can you play the title?
India's Wandering Lions.
India's Wandering Land. Okay.
Lions.
Sorry, Lions. So Koti, you can tell us when you're ready and then we will stop and then you can play, okay? We'll keep talking. Tell us whenever you're ready. Just raise your hand or interrupt, no problem.
Yeah, one moment, Danji ji. I think it's ready. I will show my screen.
Go ahead.
So which one, ma'am? The first one?
I think Akansha.
Yeah, Akansha ji.
I've uploaded it on the link to the drive that you had sent.
Oh, in the drive.
You have to go to the drive. Okay, so Koti, please go to the drive, find the film, and meanwhile we'll keep talking and we'll come back. You can take off your screen share for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, find it from the drive and we'll play it from the drive.
Talking about new technology, I think Gautam should really step in here and talk about, the virtual VR technology that he's now using in the Himalayas, and it's something really, really great, and it's an absolutely different perspective to storytelling. So, I mean, Gautam would really love. I'd love to.
Passing the buck, huh? This thermal tech is much more amazing than 360.
I find yours interesting and you find ours interesting.
Yeah, seeing into the dark, who wouldn't want that? Yeah, tech is great. I feel that they're all tools and for us to use and abuse. And I think we all abuse them very often, like drone shots now. It's kind of standard, expected, kind of a bit like how dissolves were when film started. It was very hard to do a simple dissolve. It took hours to do a simple dissolve. And then for many years, editors knew it was a right click and add transition. They wouldn't even change the duration of it. And a film was just riddled with dissolves. So I think that's like a simple example of how a tool just gets abused. And it wasn't to help storytelling. It was just to hide bad editing and storytelling. So what Akansha was saying, 360 in VR. So I'm constantly trying to engage, and draw in a newer audience, because what I've noticed in my few years of trying to make films and conservation messages, like everyone else on the panel, is that we have almost the same audience each time when there are public screenings, at least in the city. So I was a bit uncomfortable with that. I felt like the films weren't reaching where they have to reach. So I've been sort of, hitting my head against the wall, trying to figure out how to do it. And 360 VR is one way to do it. It's very immersive. It's new right now. So, people who aren't interested in wildlife or conservation would still want to put on a headset. It is very cool. And I'll show some clips and some videos that I have from that as well. But the tech will keep changing. But I think the storytelling and trying to pull in the brains and minds and participants and all of that is where my focus is. And the Bedi brothers also use a lot of tech. They use hot air balloons to fly all over India. I'm passing the baton now.
I hope the video is ready now. Well, yeah, it's a fine line where you actually try to as Gautam said rightly, it's about using the technology at the right amount, not abusing it as much. And the problem with so many filmmakers internationally also nowadays, the key thing is the ethics, how much to use it and when to use it, and recently there was some a YouTube video floating around the bear where they took the drone so close and the bear cub just fell down to the cliff and trying to come up, and the drone was still filming. I would say, somewhere we need to draw a line where how much you can abuse, how much we can exploit these kind of technology. But coming back to Gautam, the technology, what he used is just absolutely amazing. And I think he's the first one to do something like that, a quality of international levels, which nobody done in India so far, and which is amazing. And I would just save Gautam to talk more about it once his obviously the session comes in. But it's fabulous how the technology is coming and how important as a filmmaker is when to use this and how much to use it.
Thank you, Bedi.
Yeah, I will just add, to this. I mean, as Gautam mentioned about the hot air balloon, yes, I mean, that was a project which was done for the first time in India for Indian audience, actually, because we have done a lot of films for international market, but this was the first ever project which was done for Indian people and Indian market. And actually, it was a whole together a different perspective of the national parks and Indian national parks to the viewers across the globe, basically. And while doing that project, we came across a lot of new facts about the fragmentation of forest and land, that the forests are actually divided. And between those forests, there are a lot of patches where people are forest between there are villages or there are people. And we conveyed to the people or the researchers who are working on it. So that is very important that, yes, it gives a very different and a new perspective of wildlife filmmaking altogether. And even in a recent film on frogs, we used, and a macro photography, to understand, the key wild behaviors of frogs, which one cannot just see with naked eyes, like for example, tiger elephants, you can actually stand and see the behavior. But frogs, to actually see what they are doing and behaving, you really needs to go close and, use these technologies to understand their behavior as well.
Ajay, thank you very much. So Koti, are you at a point where you're able to show us, or still need time? Koti, you're muted.
Danji, we can't see the film on our drive, so we're not able to share screen. Akansha, can you share it at your end?
Okay, I'll try.
The sound is not coming through.
You'd probably have to unplug your headphones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lions, not in Africa, but India. Asiatic lions. Once almost extinct, they now number over 400 and are claiming back their lost lands, spreading out from their reserve into rural India. They enter villages and prey on cattle. a serious case of lion conflict. State. Lions are forging a bizarre relationship with people. Together they are making history.
That was pretty cool. So thanks a lot for sharing that video, Akansha. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So let's do a quick, let's go to the next panelist, and we'll keep coming back, Akansha. So let's go to Gunjan. And Gunjan, I wanted to actually take a segue from what Vijay was mentioning, which is the glamour animals, right? Or the charismatic species, as they are called in your terminology. So it's fantastic to watch a wildlife film about a polar bear. It's sexy, right? Or it's fantastic to watch a wildlife film about sharks, but what about tiny little animals? Because my mother, so in Andhra, there is this region which is very, very green, Godavari Delta. So when we go there, my mother says, Chala bagundira, patsaga undi. I mean, what she's saying is, it's very nice, it's green. Her understanding of nature is green. If it's green, it's nature. Mm-hmm. But that's actually not true, right? Because there's wildlife everywhere, in the deserts of Rajasthan to the Himalayas to the arid portions of where there is in Spiti, and I mean there's all over the place. There's wildlife. So what do you think? What do you think about the predominance of the glamour animals within the wildlife film genre? And why is it important to focus on the other animals, the really tiny ones, like Vijay was talking about frogs? Of course, Vijay, we'll come to you when we want to get your opinion on that, but I just wanted to start Gunjan off on that.
Thank you, Danji. And first of all, I want to say that thanks for having me on this panel. I've been extremely privileged to be mentored by Gautam and Akansha. And very recently, Vijayji's wife went out of her way to help me out. So, I mean, the kinship that you were talking about earlier is very beautiful in our community. So thanks for that. And what you just mentioned is very true, that we tend to see anything green as nature, and that's something that's causing problems for India right now, because we consider all the farmlands and agricultural places as green cover, which isn't really true. And that's why we have to struggle so much to fight for the forests and deforestation. But coming back to species, it is challenging. In Akansha's words, as filmmakers, we try to make frogs look sexy. So that's the challenge. If you're telling a good story, that's the center of everything. So we just try and find ways to tell stories of these lesser known mammals and species. And commissioners and documentaries for all these years have been wanting only tiger films or elephant films. And even today, if we try and pitch about these lesser known animals, then they sort of want to know more. They're like, okay, can we do it through an umbrella species? So that's something I struggle with constantly. But recently, I've been working on a film on bats. And bats, as you know, are vilified in India, especially now because of COVID, even though it's not really their fault. But I try and make people fall in love with bats. So, and people have actually seen, when they start responding to what they see, they're like, okay, they're not as bad as I thought. Because when you see a flying mammal like just fly past you, then it's scary. But if you look closely, if we are able to show them in a way that people can fall in love with them, then it makes a difference. So I think it's very important to shift the limelight. I think a lot of that we did with the On the Brink that I assisted Akansha on, and the Bedi Brothers are doing that with the Frogs film. So I think we really need now to shift our perspective to these smaller, lesser known species, which are equally endangered. For some reason, there are so many animals that are still equally endangered, like the tigers, but the tigers still get a lot of attention in India. We're very species focused on India instead of focusing on the habitats or these lesser known animals. So I think as filmmakers, it's our responsibility to show everything else that is important as well.
Wonderful. So now, obviously, I'm in mainstream film. So obviously, you have actors, right? And so the director will tell the actor, do this, and the actor will do that, and will tell the actress, do this, and the actress will do that. But in your case, you can't tell the actors in your films to do this or that because they're not going to listen to you.
Right.
So how do you deal with your big-egoed protagonists, heroes and heroines in your films?
Yeah, that's funny because animals, like you said, don't follow a script. But we still, I mean, this is a misconception that we don't go with a script on field. We do have a shooting script, and I like to call it a shopping list. So we go with all the shots that we imagine would happen, these big scenarios that, okay, I'll have a red panda sitting on a tree and the sun will be setting behind it, but that doesn't happen. You shoot a red panda if you see a red panda. But in general, I work on a lot of human interest stories as well. So I have humans as my characters as well. But the problem with that is that they too are people working at the grassroots, and they will not act for you. They will just say it as it is. If they don't, sometimes they're on camera for the first time. They don't know what you expect out of them, and sometimes they're even interviewed by a lot of people, so they have these rehearsed answers that, okay, this NGO is very nice, we are very happy, and those are not the kind of answers you want for a good film. You want them, and they don't realize that we're actually interested in their lives. So this happened with me once with one of my protagonists in Nepal, and on the first day she was giving me very standard answers because she hadn't seen a film herself, and there was this language barrier. She didn't speak in Hindi or English, I did not speak in Nepali. So the first day went really bad, so I decided to keep my camera away. And I bonded with her. I went on treks with her. We would try and communicate about red pandas. And then our shared passion for the animal was what helped us bond. So when on the 5th day, I again started taking her interview, she felt comfortable to start sharing the threats that she faces, her emotional journey. And then you get a more authentic, more powerful story. So if we want, we can watch an example. And going back to what you were asking Akansha also earlier, because before joining wildlife filmmaking full-time, I used to work in the mainstream industry. I've done a lot of music videos and fictional content. So I sort of knew what works with the people around me. I grew up in a background where nobody around me was interested in wildlife. Like apart from my brother who would like help me pick up these bats around us, but otherwise they weren't really interested in documentaries. So I always try and think of them as my target when I'm making something. So the first film that I did, which we'll see a clip of, I tried combining these genres. Like I introduced my heroine like a classic Hollywood, Bollywood actually, more than Hollywood, Bollywood structure where these slow cinematic shots and you're introducing your heroine as someone you want the audience to fall in love with. So maybe we can look at that now and I'll talk about it more later.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's the first clip, I think Menuka's journey. It should something Menuka.
So let's see if Koti has been able to overcome his technical challenge. He's not
Otherwise, I can play it here as well. I have it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah, I can play. Oh. Actually, there are 3 videos on your folder.
Menuka, the one that is titled Menuka.
Yeah, one moment.
Only a handful have ever seen them in the wild. For one of them, it's been a long road to become a guardian.
मेरो नाम मेनुका भट्टराई हो र मेरो घर वरिपरि जङ्गल छ र भिर पाखा घर नजिकै एउटा खोला छ मैले 6 वर्षको हुँदादेखि मैले जङ्गल प्रवेश गरेको त्यो बेला मलाई जङ्गल जाँदा त्यस्तो चराचुरुङ्गी कराएको नि ठिक लाग्यो र अरू यसो मसिनो बोट बिरुवाहरू देख्दाखेरि सानो सानो थियो र यो हुर्केर कत्रो ठुलो हुन्छ कि यत्रै बस्छ होला जस्तो महसुस लाग्थ्यो त्यतिखेर म चाहिँ रेड पान्डा नेटवर्कको महिला फरेस्ट गार्जियन हो र यो मेरो कथा हो
And then if you could play the other clip that's called Red Panda. I'll just tell you a bit more about it. So another thing about non-fiction filmmaking, working with people who are not actors, is you have to capture authentic reactions. So in Menuka's case, I knew that even though my main character was a red panda, but when she was seeing a red panda, and I knew how passionate she was, so I turned the camera towards her to capture what she's actually going through when she's seeing a panda. And that is one of the most powerful moments of the film. If we can watch the clip called Red Panda.
यो रेड पान्डा एकदम राम्रो छ कि हेर्दाखेरि हेरिरहनु परेको छ एकदमै माया लाग्दो छ यो रेड पान्डा यो 1.5 वर्षको साइजको हो यो
Menuka believes this is the cub from the nest. It's a huge relief for the team and will ensure the cub's safety from poachers.
मान्छेलाई रेड पान्डा मार्ने अधिकार छैन सबैभन्दा
Yeah, so she was getting really emotional and she started thanking God for keep having red pandas in her forest, and all that was really priceless. And if I didn't know that about her beforehand, then I would have probably just focused on the red pandas. So that's how I think it's important to even have a script or a strong research, like Akansha mentioned earlier, when you go into non-fiction or wildlife documentary storytelling.
Thank you, Gunjan. That's, that little clip was so nice. My eyes went a little moist as I was watching that little.
Watch the whole film, you like it.
So I have one more question, and then we'll go to Gautam after that. The thing that I always, try to understand is, what kind of I asked Akansha the same question, what kind of an outcome, emotional outcome are you planning for when you make a film in your audience? The audience are human beings, obviously, but what do you want them to feel,
In short, the short answer is that I want them to feel what I'm feeling. And the long answer is that I want my films to have an impact that's tangible. So I don't want people to just passively watch a film. I want them to feel the need to go out and act and take an action to support the movement. And because I make conservation films, there's always a call to action or there's always a purpose. I don't know how, but always I work backwards. I think of an idea as something that I want to change first, or like an impact that I want to have, and then comes the story like in my head. So it's like for the Red Panda story, it was that these Red Panda numbers are declining and people around me don't know about Red Pandas. And then came the research, then came the character. For a recent story that I'm working on, it's backwards because these species that I'm working on are extinct in the wild and I want them to be put back on the map. And that's how then the story will come. So there's always an impact that I'm looking at and then I work backwards. So I obviously am aiming that people would raise their voices. They would come support me in the cause to help these species in whichever way they can. And that can only happen when they feel for the species. So in a way, that need for an emotional impact that you're talking about is very important for me personally.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you. So we'll go over to Gautam now. And, so Gautam, the first question I have is where do you hang out? I mean, all of you are wildlife filmmakers. So is there a place you hang out? Like, is there a wildlife filmmakers club somewhere in South Mumbai or someplace where you guys hang out, a beer or something? What do you do?
Unfortunately, all of us are spread all across the country. So, but we do hang out at film festivals when we do meet. And there are some nasty stories to tell from that one, but that's for a different session, I think. Akansha's got her fingers on her lips, sealed.
Okay, wonderful. So here is a question, I mean, this is a bit of a controversial question, I mean, which I've gathered is a challenge with wildlife filmmaking, which is the whole concept of staging, right? So staging for the audience, listening in. I mean, you can actually probably talk about what staging is, and then where is the line? I mean, how far should one be going? What is your opinion about it?
Yeah, so it is a bit controversial, and I think filmmakers know where they stand, wildlife guys, and it's an ethical issue. So the line is very blurred, of course. And staging is basically when you create a situation or almost force a behavior sometimes, or basically fake it. So one way of staging would be in a controlled environment in a zoo. Some filmmakers could be okay with that. Another form of staging could be baiting, and it could be live baiting, and it could be like passive baiting, where you kind of leave scents behind or pheromones behind, or bits of meat or whatever it might be, depending on what animal you're filming. And the other kind of staging could be to kind of pick up odds and ends of footage from wherever it might be. It might not be the same animal, and you kind of just to tell the story. So out of all these, I think I'm okay with the last one, where as long as I'm not sort of, in that also there are two types of films where it's about a specific character that you build up, like this man-eater tiger, for example. Now, over there, again, it kind of splits. So people maybe say, oh, it's not that tiger, right? That particular shot, because you don't have the shot which exists of that tiger. But for the sake of storytelling, some people could use it. That could also turn into two shots where it's a blurry, shaky shot. It just helps stitch something together. And I think that's allowed in my book, because the story has to be the queen or the king at the end. And I think baiting, altering behavior, and very often even altering the physical space of an animal in the wild is off my list, for sure. I mean, there are many instances where I've been offered opportunities and I'm just shocked each time that how could you, offer that and not think that I would report it or not report it. But it's part of the truth. It's the new trophy hunting. It's in the still photography game. It's getting the shot, saying you're the one who got the shot. And there are other horror stories of, in the whole still photography game and that's why some groups have banned shots of nesting birds, which is great because people are destroying nests or cutting branches off to get a clear shot of the nest. That's just a mild example. The stuff of injecting fish with air from a syringe and throwing it into a pond so it floats, and then getting raptors to come down and grab them. I could go on. Nailing snakes to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a important topic. I thank you very much for speaking about it because I think it's very, very important. But I mean, I wanted to ask you about your experience with the Border Security Force, and was it in Delhi or was it in some remote location?
I was trying to convince them that it has to be at a remote location, but they didn't buy my pitch. So it was in Delhi, in our basement, in our studio, to make it even worse, to really rub it in. But it was quite cool. It was for 10 days. And on the first day, they weren't really sure what it's going to be about. But by the second, third day, they all warmed up. And then we had, and it was a general filmmaking course, but then it ended up being about wildlife because a lot of them are in remote areas.
1 minute.
They all, serve, they're posted in these remote areas, which are very often some of the last places for some species to kind of thrive and be. Like in Gujarat, the flamingos nesting over there, or, like brown bears up in, Siachen side. And they all have some crazy stories and even crazier photographs on their mobile phones. So I told them, I was like, you have to shoot horizontal and record video. Don't take photos anymore.
Did you go to film school, Gautam?
Yeah, I went after 8 years of working.
Oh, okay. That must be very, very productive because you have so much experience already to bring to the table in terms of when you're learning something else.
It was an interesting experience. It was an advanced film course. And HD was sort of peeping its head over. So I thought I could get a jump start and figure out what the whole HD thing was and what the big deal was about, this new tech that's going to come in. And it was interesting because, when you learn on the job, there's always a bit of self-doubt that's ingrained. Am I doing it right? Or, I kind of figured this out, but is there a better way? And then like a structured way of learning, helped me kind of, feel better about myself.
I mean, Bediji was talking about VR, right? And your passion for VR. And I've been a little bit involved at Sony Pictures. We have a whole division where we do a lot of fairly leading edge VR work. And, manage a lot of those vendors and all that. So I have some understanding of VR, not a lot, but I wanted to, so how are you using VR in your current project?
So VR, so I started a few years back when I started hearing about VR, and then I couldn't afford any of the rigs or the cameras. So I made one out of a block of wood, and I had 2 GoPros and I borrowed 4 more. And I put them on this cube of wood with rubber bands, and I stuck a sticker on it, and I used a stitching software to put it together, and it worked. So I understood the essence of VR, but I still didn't have the right project to kind of invest all that money into it because cameras are still pretty expensive. So it took about 2-3 years actually for me to build up and find the right story for VR. And I'd been pitching the story of the Himalayan landscape. And then I worked with UNDP India, and the dream was to try and go and bring the landscape to the people and the remote locations and go beyond Leh city, go beyond the usual stuff people see when they think of Ladakh and Spiti and places like that. And then the impossible shot was try and film snow leopards in VR, which I had even removed from my thought. I was like, it's not going to happen. I'd been trying to camera trap them for several years. It's a hit and miss. The technology is failing all the time. So it's very frustrating. And failure is something I'm sure everyone on this panel is well accustomed to. And you just take it in your stride. You prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And we managed to get this VR shot, this snow leopard shot. So I'll share some clips whenever you say. And what the 360 project was to actually pull in people, and that's the trick that we use very often, is to trick them into thinking they're seeing a blue chip, cool, fun thing, and then you just inject a side squeeze, a punch to the kidneys with conservation messages and stuff like that, and you just knock them out of the park, and you kind of end it with a little bit. But there are things you can do, and like Gunjan was saying, bringing it to the people, making sure that they want to see it, or a masala film, like you said. So, shall I share the screen and kind of show a couple of visuals?
Yeah, we can ask Koti if he can, or if not, then we can.
Oh, so the 360 stuff I haven't sent him because I need to put it into a 360 player to show it. Yes. Here we go. You might see my desktop. Ignore that. So this is basically a 360 shot. So the films, I should add, are going to be released on Snow Leopard Day. So I can't really show full clips from the film. But let me show the trailer first, actually. And I think do I need to connect my speakers for the audio? I do.
I think turn on you have to say share computer sound.
Okay, give me a sec.
Himalayas, like they've never been seen before. Come experience the habitat, the wildlife, and the lives of the people who live here in cinematic 360 VR. Into the Himalayas, coming soon in 360.
Okay, so was the audio there?
Yes, it was awesome.
Oh, it was, okay, fantastic. So that was the trailer. That's the Snow Leopard shot, a sneak peek at it at the end of it. There's a whole story around that, but I'll tell you that at a film festival, maybe.
Sure. I mean, okay. When is this coming out?
23rd October. It was supposed to be out in Feb, and just things have been delayed for all kinds of reasons. Then COVID happened, and usual stuff. So 360, for anyone who's not familiar with it, you have to ideally wear a headset, but you can see it on your phones and laptops. So this is a typical 360 shot. It's a still. It's not video, but you can basically turn your head around in any direction, up, down. Down. So there was a tripod here. We removed that, and if it stills, you can do cool stuff like this. Do like a little planet thing. I don't know if you've seen images like this. They're quite cool. You can it's a fun piece of technology. But with the video, what's cool is we decided to shoot it stereoscopic, which means like 3D. If you've seen a 3D film, where you have that depth. And we also decided, and it was pretty hard to do, is spatialize sound, so that if you hear something on the right, if you see something on the right, and the sound has to come from that source. But when you turn to face it, that sound has to get centralized, if that makes sense. So just like in real life. And that's really a very cool tool to use, because you can make people look where you want them to look. Because in this, you don't really move the camera. It's still, you roll it, and And that's the way it goes. I'll show you some photos of the camera as well. Maybe it'll be easier to understand then. So that's the camera over there. This round thing over here, which looks like Chappie, the movie, if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
Was that a Sony Pictures movie?
Yes, it was.
It was. And that's an ambisonic mic. So that has about 4 or 5. I might get technical very fast. Just cough loudly if I do. And I'll know I have to move on. And you can monitor what the camera is seeing because you have to disappear from the scene. So you kind of have this wireless feed and you record and you kind of get out of there. And this is in a indoor location. This was a conservation film that we made as one of the 360 films, where this grandfather is narrating a story of Ladakh. This one's my favorite one, actually. And then we had drones with some 360 cameras on, and that's the snow leopard that we got. So what we did was, here's another still from that. And that's the landfill in Ladakh. So you can see amazing, beautiful places, and you love it. But if you also show the not so amazing places, the impact is quite deep. And people remember this quite a bit. I took the film back to Ladakh with a VR headset, and it was a very emotional experience for a lot of people because, I mean, who visits a landfill, right? So just seeing this, and if you look, it's all bottles. And if you've been to Leh, and if you bought a bottle, and I have, it's in this landfill somewhere. So, the idea was to bring that, that bit of reality straight into the viewer's face and say that you are part of this. You're not removed from this problem, this issue. We are all contributing to this in whatever city we are in. It is not only about Leh and Ladakh. Let's see what else I have. So this is
what's that text out of garbage? What's that text out of garbage?
The text. So that's a still from the film itself.
Okay.
So the line is, "We've built mountains out of garbage." So this is from a drone, and that's the village down there. Where is it? Somewhere down there. Oop. Down there is the village. So we hiked up and we came, and well, this was it. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, just give me a sec.
That's wonderful, Gautam.
I'll just show you the one more shot from this. I should be more descriptive with my file names. There we go. So basically in this, the shot begins like this, but you hear the snow leopards before you see them. So the viewer turns their head, and then they get like the shock of their life because they see these snow leopards next to them like that. And it's quite a moment. I'm excited for the films to come out and for anyone to see them on a headset with headphones on, ideally.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Wonderful. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. I mean, that was I got my fill of technology there. Thank you very much. So we'll go over to Vijay ji and Ajay ji. And once we're done with that, we will have a few minutes for Q&A. And if you have, we have some more time, so no problem. So basically, Koti, can you please bring in Vijay ji first? Okay, while you do that. So I just need to, wanted to ask you a few questions. So can you, I mean, I know that, your recent film that won many international awards including the golden lotus and the two silver lotuses. So can you talk about that film? And I know that it is something that we talked about previously, which is the lesser known species. And can you talk about it? And I would like to actually, for you to elaborate on it a little bit, take a couple of minutes and then talk about it. I know you also have a clip that we can show. Do you want us to show the clip first and then you want to talk, or?
No, let me talk quickly and then we can play it later once it's live. So first of all, I'm honored to be part of this history festival organized by Center of Soft Power and all the sponsors coming together. We need more debates like these more often. Special thanks to Vijay Lakshmi, Sir, you and your entire team putting this together and bringing all us together. And special hi to my super talented fellow speakers. And they have done amazing stuff all around the world. Making wildlife films in India is always a big challenge. And for past few years, we've been little lucky to do films on them. And my first ever film, like Ajay and I, our first ever film was on the Police Lingu, which was based out of Delhi and on monkeys. It was totally very different genre, based out of urban jungle and looking at more of human-animal conflict. And then we thought, we should make another film on highly endangered red panda, which took almost 3 years in making, looking at the entire breeding cycle, how the red pandas were breeding during that time. And after that, we made several films. And the most recent one was the film on amphibians. And again, there have been so many films on Indian tigers, leopards, and you want me to pin it if you want to look at me? 1 second. There you go. Can you see me now?
If you can be a little louder also, then it will be good. Slightly.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, the whole idea was we need to focus more on lesser known species. There's been enough films of tigers and leopards and elephants. I have nothing against them, but I think so we need to look beyond that. India is such a fascinating place, and more films come out, better it is. And looking at the wildlife amphibians, we thought, it would be much more easier to do it, because I thought, we filmed snow leopards in -30 degrees, we have filmed wild ass in 55 degrees. It will be a piece of cake, And for a filmmaker, we always like to learn from mentors. We like to see what other people have done, or to get inspired, or speak to them, and to learn how we can do it better, But especially with amphibians, there was not many films like that. There have been a couple of landmark films done by the big broadcaster, but nothing was locally done. So we were really struggling. We failed so many times. Every time we experiment how to film them, and it was such a difficult thing to do. And we almost thought not to film this. And the challenges starts from, from every step. First of all, when you talk about frogs, the first thing comes in your mind is night. How to film at night. And if you put a light, they will run away. So how to come back? So we decided to use red lights. So when you use a red light, the animal get disturbed less, and then you find an animal, and then when you find an animal, you try to bring your camera close to it and try to film it and wait for animal to react, and then you slowly turn the lights on and try to increase the intensity and try to film it. So one was the biggest challenge with that. The second was these creatures were as big as your thumbnail. This tiny creature, to bring it on a big screen was a huge challenge. And how to do that, and how to get them behave the way we want in wild, which was huge. We don't have huge budgets like most of the broadcasters, and we are putting our own money in. Like Gunjan said, it's very difficult to get funding for these films. And we went to all the broadcasters, and they're like, no, sorry, we don't want to fund you for the film. So we decided, let's put our own money and tell the story, because it's a story of Indian amphibians and it needs to be told. And we didn't have any sets. Everything was filmed in wild. And last and most important thing, the frogs breathe from their skin. We are not frogs, we are human beings. And during our second year, I could imagine, our skins were literally peeling off from our body because we were spending so much time in the water. So I need to speak to my local doctor and got some antifungal powders, and we need to pour them. And he said, you need to keep it dry. I was like, that's not going to happen. And it was huge challenging. And as most important in natural history filmmaking is you need to connect with the people, and you need to tell a story which touches. Ultimately, we had three characters in the film. One was the frog which danced, and we called it Dancing Frogs, which is incredible, which Ajay will talk more about it. And the other one's the potter. Who can imagine that frogs can be potters? They use sands to protect their eggs. They cover their eggs to protect from predators. And last, which is the most important thing, is the purple frog. It also comes out again for very few days in a week to breed, in a year to breed, and then they go back in the soil. So I remember filming it, and after 2 years we said, we need to find another character because we don't have enough money to sustain our filmmaking. So we need to find somebody else because we couldn't film it. And in this case, most of the researchers also didn't see it. They had some visual records, but they didn't know exactly what triggered them to come out. Same with the red pandas. When we were doing our research, we read most of the research paper from French, the most of the research paper from British researchers. Everybody said they make a vast sound. And we were like, okay, let's find a vast sound and try to film the meeting. And after spending 3 months in minus 30 degrees, we didn't hear any vast sound. In fact, they make more of a bird chirping sounds. And if by chance we thought it must be a college, and we turn a camera and it was actually a panda meeting. So same, I don't want to reveal too much about the film, but all I have to say is that we need to focus more on less known species, and our focus is to talk about this amazing creature which is in India, and we can show a quick montage to the other people, and then we can take it from there.
Wonderful, thank you. Koti, can you please bring up that, what's the name of the file, sir?
It should be the trailer.
The trailer.
This one, right?
Yes.
That's one. Amazing. That's such a high quality film there.
Thanks.
Really nice.
So yeah, so just trying to focus on more lesser known species, and it's more important than as an Indian, we need to talk about these are our own pandas and these are our own frogs, and we need to save them, basically.
Thank you so much for that really is a great insight into why and the purpose of making films on lesser known species. I had another question, and that has to do with I think I'll actually, let me do this. Let me go to Ajay Ji, and then I'll come back, and then we'll do a couple of wrap up questions, and then we can go to Q&A after that. Audience, basically Q&A. So Ajay Ji, I wanted to ask a couple questions that I have for you. One question is,
can you pin yourself, Ajay, first?
Okay.
Yeah, can you spotlight Ajay Ji, please?
Yeah, will that work?
Thank you. How does, I know editing is like such a below the line function that, there are well-known editors, famous editors, but we hardly know them many times, right? But what role does editing have in making a film, especially a film such as The Secret Life of Frogs,
I mean, first of all, a very hello to everybody, and I must say I'm honored to be here among all my fellow filmmakers and delegates, and you guys are doing a great job, and it's lovely to be here among everybody here. And just to add to what Vijay said about our film, I mean, The Secret Life of Frog is one of the first films of India on Indian amphibians. And the main core for making that film was to basically, highlight frogs as one of the major and very important species in our ecosystem, because I believe that once we save frogs, we can actually protect our ecosystem, we can actually protect our rivers, and we can actually protect other wildlife as well. So it's not just tigers we need to protect them, it's also the little creatures like frogs, which we need to really protect them so that we can protect the whole ecosystem and the wildlife and the nature. And as Vijay said, we touched upon a few species, and one of the major species was the purple frog. And just to educate, that according to the IUCN Red List, the purple frog is placed in the fourth highest category of threatened species. And almost all the other species which were covering, they were highly endangered, and they were an immediate need to conserve them. And just going back when we did our Red Pandas film in 2008, we also realized the same fact that when we talked about people about pandas, the red pandas, people didn't knew about that. And same thing when we went and talked about people about frogs. So the only fact people know about frogs was that they come out in rains and make these funny sounds, So it gave us altogether a more reason, to find, something more about these little creatures. And as other filmmakers was talking about, and you even asked, especially about wildlife films, it's very important is that the research in wildlife films is very important. And it is the key from I believe that it's the key to start, the wildlife film. And during our research, we did found many facts, many behaviors which have never been filmed before. And we wanted to film these behaviors so that even scientists and other people who don't know this beautiful aspect of these frogs can actually see and learn about that. Coming back to your question about the editing, yes, I mean, editing is very important aspect of filmmaking, and our role has been very important as filmmakers, that to present animal behavior in a way which is not just boring, because at times, yes, people watch very hardcore conservation or wildlife films and they get bored, they said, oh, what is this? We don't want to see, behaviors, the routine behaviors. So me and my brother, came up with a very unique idea of, editing this frog behavior, which we call the torrent frog, the dancing frog, in a way which, not only just passes the message of the animal behavior, but also makes it interesting for any people from a younger child or to an old person or to a person who doesn't know about wildlife. So making sequences interesting, and at the same time showing details about animals, especially frogs, for example, the eyes. As they say, the beauty lies in the eyes of animals. So especially in the frogs, we were able to do that. And I will just show you a small clip, I think so, which is not in the clips there, but I need to just play it to show how we treated this behavior of this frog who taps his feet, and then I'll just show the clip and then talk a little more about it. Basically, just give me a minute.
Ajay is the most well-mannered filmmaker on this panel. I vote for the award to him.
I give my vote to him.
There we go. We have a winner. Clean. Oh no, we need one more vote.
Me too.
Okay.
I have a vote. I'll vote for him.
There you go.
He's 6 minutes older than me, so I can't take any chances.
Well, that's just a picture of frogs, marriage, they are getting married. Talking about relationship, that's very important. Just give me a minute, I just showed. The dancing sequence, basically, just to give you a brief idea.
Wow.
Ajay, audio not that clear. I don't know why.
I don't know. I mean, I have to do it full, basically. Just give me a minute if I can connect. Okay.
When you share, Ajay, when you share, there's an option to optimize for video clips. So stop share, do share again, and then on the bottom, you'll see an optimize for video clips or something like that. like zoom ka option, huh? So stop sharing and then reshare, and the options at the bottom.
Okay, let's give it a minute.
I mean, I say this assuming that my video played flawlessly. If it didn't, then I don't know.
No, you're good. Only.
Then,
So I cannot see that actually for now.
so stop sharing first.
Stop sharing, right? Now?
And now reshare and look at the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
Optimize for video clip.
Okay. Yeah. And share again, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, give it a shot.
Okay. There you go.
Victorious male positions himself on the prized rock.
You can't see anything.
No video.
Right?
No video.
No video.
Black screen right now.
Black screen. Let me go back the same way where I was doing it. So.
So from share screen, choose your QuickTime player. There'll be, so if that didn't work too well, then just do share my whole screen, which is the first option.
Share computer sound, optimize screen share for video. And
Yeah, and then on the top, if you look all those thumbnails,
yes.
the first one is share your entire screen, right?
Desktop, right?
Yeah, the first one. That's what I had done.
Can you see now?
That's amazing. You know, it's I think Bollywood probably picked it up from these frogs. Amazing.
Right. So just to add, I mean, it is very important, as we saw in the beginning of this presentation today, music and dance is very important aspect in our culture. And I believe even in our films, it plays a very important role as it conveys certain things, not just to, highlight, but also to create a mood, to create a flavor, and to create love for animals. And in our film, it really helps to create that magic, basically, what I will call to fall in love with these beautiful creatures. And to be very, I will just like to share one more thing, and just a little secret probably, I will say, and you will all be amazed to know that, sometimes animals really speaks to us, I think so. All the filmmakers here might agree that, you can actually feel that these little creatures or the animals really speaks to you. And it's not just one feels it, you can actually experience it while you are filming them, that the animals really want you guys to film them, or, to be there around yourself. And which we really experienced while we filming frogs, that, during a course of time, they believe that you are part of it, and they will actually come either hop onto you, or, they will just be very close to you and just be perform naturally as you are part of it. So that's something which is very lovely. And I have this little creature here, saying hello to everybody as a frog. So, it's something which is very, very personal. I thought I should share it, that animals really speaks, and we at times have to be the voice for these animals, and we have to convey the conservation message to all our viewers and to across the world, that we really need to conserve these beautiful creatures and our natural environment.
Thank you very much, Ajay ji. I really appreciate it. That was a beautiful video, and then I think your talk about editing and how important it is. I think in wildlife films, editing is a lot more important than regular film. So we are almost coming up to the end of our panel. We have 5 more minutes, and I have actually a couple of one question. So the question is, I'll read it out. Actually, we have 2 questions. Let me read it out. 3, sorry. So the first question is from Girish. Girish asks, how can we make wildlife documentaries more interesting and exciting for children and youth that's more social media savvy? So anybody, feel free to jump in. Anyone can jump into it.
Follow all of us on Instagram to find out more.
I think if you're looking at social media, your films need to be very, very interesting visually, and they should be very short films, and they should be such that you can hear the story even on mute.
Great. Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Oh, good one. Yeah, kya baat hai.
Yeah, a lot of people watch on mute, so you should be able to understand the story without hearing anything.
Good point. Good point. And add text then maybe little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer, Akansha. Thanks so much. That's very, very.
I'll just add to that you can use Instagram stories or like this new platforms to sort of pull them into the actual content. Sometimes you can use those to link your main, like Gautam said, he uses pretty pictures to pull them into conservation, and then bam. So similarly, stories, because a lot of these kids these days are content creator themselves, so they understand this field. So if you can use these stories creatively, that's a great way to get them to watch more content, conservation content, wildlife content.
Okay. Anita Rangaswamy is asking, with the large number of Bollywood films, /wood, that wood, this wood films, what is the interest level in general for environmental and animal conservation in India?
This is a great interest.
In other words, what kind of an impact are you guys making on the whole topic of animal conservation?
See, it's a very interesting question. The thing is, there's a huge amount of talent in India to do some great stuff. And like, there's so many people making films now because they've realized first they start with taking still pictures, and then they graduate to making wildlife films. And the question is not that how to make it, the question is where you want to sell it. And unfortunately, when we talk about wildlife filmmaking in India or in the world perspective, it's still seen as a developed country's work. It's still a white man's job. And the perceive we have to change that, Asians are as good as anybody else. And the problem we face, because as I said earlier, there's some amazing films. There's some films, as Gautam said, coming from the field which don't even have a basic cameras, and they're just making these short movie clips and then making a film out of mobile phones. And the content, as a filmmaker, even you spend 3 years, you won't get it because they are right there and try to film something like that. The bigger question is that where the Asian filmmakers can broadcast the film. We eventually go back to the American market to sell our film, which is only way to make a film. To just give you a perspective about the funding situation around the world is the entire Europe and Asia is about $2 trillion market. And when we talk about America and North America market is around close to $6 to $9 trillion market. So no matter what document you make, till the time you don't sell it to America, you won't be able to make money. And American audience are very different. They don't want they want more interactive. They want to focus more on sharks. Most of the bigger broadcasters and OTT platforms still have dedicated show to sharks and people who handle animals. And unfortunately, the Indian wildlife scenario is very different. As per the law, you're not supposed to handle any of the animals, including as tiny as frogs, for example. So I think that the bigger picture is that Indian government should step in, and we need to have more broadcasters and coming to give a more slot to Indian wildlife filmmakers to showcase their work, or OTT platforms, matter of fact.
Thank you, Vijay. With that, we are pretty much out of time. Arunima is asking me to wrap it up. And so therefore we will. And I will just make a quick 30-second closing remark. And that is that I have learned so much today. So thank you all for it was an amazing panel. All of you spoke so well, and all of you actually provided so much insight into something that you wouldn't be able to read about it in some article or anywhere, right? So it's fantastic. So I thank you personally from the bottom of my heart for being able to come over here and speak to our audiences. So thank you very, very much. I hope to stay in touch with you guys. And we have a film festival coming up, like Arunima mentioned earlier, 12th to 15th of November, the first ever Indic Film Utsav. So thank you very much. Over to you, Arunima.
Thank you so much, Danji.
I would like to interrupt a minute, and I do want to say that I thank Sugandhi for actually putting us in touch with all of you. It was really kind of her, and she helped us out a lot with getting us in touch with all of you. So I thought I should mention that.
Tell us a little known fact about Sugandhi.
Pardon me? Yeah, see, that's a little known fact about her.
No, you tell us.
You tell us. You tell us.
What should I tell you about her? She's a really sweet person.
They want to let something
We
out.
all know that.
We're not buying it. We're filmmakers here.
You're not buying it? Oh, but I mean, I asked her, and she, in fact, Amoga Varsha asked Sugandhi to help us out. And when we asked her, she was really nice. I mean, she was available even at 11 o'clock at night when we messaged her. So she's really a nice person. So if you
That's a
have
widely
any
known
other
fact.
opinions, well, you can laugh all you want, but you know, she's a good person.
No, little known fact is that if you send her a message at 11 p.m., she will reply.
Ah, correct. Oh, she's a nice person is a widely known fact.
Okay, thank God you said that.
No, of course, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Oops.
Varsha, you want to thank them all?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, very wonderful. Thank you, Danji, and thank you to all of our speakers, Akansha, Gautam, Gunjan, and the Bedi Brothers, Ajay and Vijay, for sharing your time and thoughts with us. I hope we can have more such vital discussions in the future. I will now hand it over to Vijay Lakshmi Aunty to take us to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
Everybody.
Oh, and here's the reason why we brought Danji to chair this is because we thought somebody coming from a completely different film background should understand, you know, what wildlife filmmakers go through. So that was our reason for, you know, asking him to come in to do this. So I guess now people understand that making films where the actors don't listen to you is quite a tough job.
We must make a small promo for the Indic Film Utsav that's happening November 12th to 15th. Danji is the chief curator. We have received more than 800 entries across features, documentaries, shorts, and ultra shorts. This is a initiative for us in the film space. So, Danji, you want to talk a little bit about the festival and all the things that are happening there?
Sure. I mean, give me a chance to talk about the festival. I'll bore you guys to death.
You'll get exactly 3 minutes, Danji.
Oh, thank you, Maka. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a very important festival. It's a specialized festival. It's focused on. It's called, like I mentioned previously, it's called Indic Film Utsav. By the way, we've chosen the elephant as our logo. So our logo is a victorious elephant. So Indic Film Utsav is happening 12th to 15th. We are at a point where we are about to close submissions. Of course, if any of you would like to send us films, I know we got a few, but you have to email me, and we don't need an end date for you guys. You guys can send us an email, film anytime, and we will include it. So the film festival is like any other film festival, except that it's a global online film festival. We are going to host our films on a very secure DRM-enabled platform, and it'll be these films will be shown to worldwide audiences all over the world. I mean, 24/7, people can go and watch a film. We have a major campaign, a publicity campaign that's getting mounted as we speak. And it will go out to a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to watch it. The festival itself has several categories. There's features, there's documentaries, there's shorts and ultra shorts. We are one of those few festivals that has a prize money for the winning entries. Indic Film Utsav is a flagship event of Indica Pictures, which is one of the several platforms of Indic Academy. And we are entirely self-funded, and we also don't charge a ticket fee. So it's a very genuine effort that we are trying to put together to showcase films that are about forgotten memories and untold tales of India, with the goal of reviving the Indic civilization thought. So basically, we have plenty of films that have already come in, 850 almost, and we have picked some really good ones in the short list. We are still yet to make the final lineup, but we are very excited that we'll be able to bring to you a great festival. So thank you very much, Harikiran, for allowing me, and Akka for allowing me to speak about it.
Thank you.
Sounds amazing. Maybe you should add a little foot flagging frog on top of the elephant. This was leg out. 850 is amazing for a festival. Wow.
Yeah, we are actually very overwhelmed. We are very happy. This is the first time we're doing this, and we've got some good promotions from a lot of stars in the South who helped us, a lot of producers in the South who helped us. So yeah, very, very excited.
All the best.
All the best and wishes for the festival.
So thank you all. And now we'll move on to our next session, which is